Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Joey Francess, your life, love, and relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining me. Most people don't recycle an ex, because it's a great idea. They recycle an ex because dating made them tired. I'm saying that with respect because dating fatigue is real. And if you've been out there long enough, swiping, small talk, first dates, what do you do, telling your story again and again, getting your hopes up and watching them fall, you don't just get disappointed. You get worn down. And when you're worn down, you don't just want love, you want relief. And that's where recycling becomes a trap, because when you're tired, familiarity can look like solution. Someone from your past shows up and suddenly they feel like a shortcut. They feel like a knight in shining armor. Or a princess in shining armor. Not because they're perfect, but because you don't have to start at zero. You already don't know their laugh. You know what a Sunday with them feels like. You already have a story. And a story, unfortunately, can feel like stability when you're exhausted. Now, I need to be clear about my stance because I'm not neutral on this. I am not a fan of recycling. I'm not saying it never works. I'm not saying people can't change. I'm saying that most of the time, recycling is a high-risk move that people make for reasons they don't fully admit to themselves. In my own life, there have only been one, maybe two times where I would even consider going back. And even then, it wouldn't be because the feelings came back and knocked me over. It would be because the thing that broke it actually changed. Not in a speech, not an apology, not in a I've grown, I mean change that shows up as a different pattern over time in real life. I have to be self-aware about how I love when I care. I'm intentional, I'm loyal, I'm present, and I don't do halfway. So if I were to reopen a door, I'm not reopening it for entertainment. I'm not reopening it because I have dating fatigue and I just want somebody in my life. I would be reopening it because I believe the foundation could hold. That means I have to be very careful with what I call a second chance, because attachment is an investment. And if I'm wrong, if you're wrong, if any of us are wrong about this, it costs time, energy, clarity, and peace. So, obviously, today we're talking about the past. Not the person you went on 2 dates with. I'm talking about the relationship you intentionally dated. The one that had real history. The one that ran long enough to leave a mark. And then it ended. Months go by or years go by, and then one day they're back in your life. When that happens, the question isn't, do I still feel something? Because of course you do. History has gravity. The question is whether you're about to create a second chance or whether you're about to create a second cycle. Here's the truth. Here's the first truth you need if you're going to handle recycling like an adult. History is not proof. History is a bias. History makes you feel like the risk is lower because you've already been with them. You assume you know what you're dealing with, but you actually know is who they were then, who you were then, and what the dynamic was then. But the thing is, time changes people. But time can also preserve the exact same pattern, just dressed up in a different outfit. And when you have dating fatigue, your mind becomes even more biased because your memory is not a historian. Your memory is an editor. You've probably experienced this in a simple way. You remember a vacation from years ago and it feels perfect. Then you talk to someone who was there with you and they remind you of the missed flights, the argument you had, the money stress, the exhaustion. Your brain kept the highlight reel because memory isn't built for accuracy, it's built for meaning and comfort. Dating fatigue turns your past into a highlight reel too. You start forgetting the parts that made you leave. You start forgetting how anxious you were, forgetting how often you felt like you were guessing, forgetting how small you felt when you asked for basic respect. You start remembering the comfort and you start calling that comfort compatibility. That's why the devil you know versus the devil you don't idea is so seductive. It sounds wise, but it's usually fear in a fancy suit. It's you saying, at least I know what kind of pain this is. That's not love. That's exhaustion trying to negotiate, though. So let's talk about the perfect storm, because this is when recycling feels the most convincing. Dating fatigue meets a message from the past. You had a stretch of bad experiences. You're tired of introductions. You're tired of being impressed for a week and then ignored. You're tired of feeling like you have to be chill to be chosen. Tired of people who want access without responsibility. Tired of wondering if people even mean what they say anymore. And then out of nowhere, like a person riding a horse through the fog, your ex shows up. And it doesn't just feel like a person. It feels like a relief. Like you don't have to keep searching. It feels like your life just got easier. But relief is not a foundation. Relief is a feeling. And feelings, boys and girls, are not part of the blueprint, as we've been talking about. The blueprint is what protects you when you're tired. It's the decision you make in peace so you don't negotiate when you're depleted. If you don't have that, you'll mistake the comfort of the past for the quality of the future. Now, I want to bring in a story that captures this perfectly because it shows how quickly recycling can go sideways and you don't slow down. And this happened actually, I don't know, like a month ago, not even. A woman's first boyfriend comes back into her life. Years have passed. He reaches out to apologize for the way he treated her. He owns it. He names it. He takes accountability. If you've ever wanted an apology you know you never got, you understand how powerful that moment is. An apology can feel like closure, and closure can feel like healing. And that's why this part matters. When someone leads with an apology, it can immediately lower your guard. You feel seen, you feel validated, you feel like the past is finally being handled properly. And when your heart has been holding on to an old wound, the person who acknowledges it can feel like they're safe. Then right after the apology, he starts implying they should get to know each other again. He suggests a date. He suggests revisiting the connection. Here's the question I want you to hold in situations like this. Is the apology sincere? As in, he's reflecting on his life and trying to make amends for the way that he treated you or anybody else. It doesn't mean him. Could be her too. But either way, is the apology sincere? Is this just something weighing on their conscience that they needed to clear? Or is the apology a doorway? A sincere apology can stand on its own. It doesn't need an agenda attached. It can be simple as, I treated you wrong. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve it. I hope you're doing well. Full stop. Maybe it's been eating at them and they finally wanted to clear their conscience. When someone apologizes and immediately pivots into dating, it doesn't automatically mean they're lying. It means you should slow down and look at motive. Are they owning the past because it's right? Or are they using ownership of the past to re-enter your life? In this story, before the woman even agrees to anything, she finds out the man has been divorced for 3 months. Now, me personally, I see that as a monumentally giant red flag. And it's not because divorced people are broken, and it's not because divorce means you can't love again. Divorce can be a mature decision. What I'm saying is that 3 months out of a marriage is usually not stability, it's aftershock. Marriage isn't just a relationship, it's a daily structure, it's routine, finances, family, identity, future planning, and the quiet psychological comfort of this is my person. And when that ends, you don't just lose a partner, you're losing an entire system. And people who lose a system often go looking for another system to replace the feelings. So when someone is freshly divorced and suddenly wants to date, you have to consider the possibility that they're not looking for love, they're looking for a replacement. They're looking for something to fill the hole. They're looking for relief from being alone. They're looking for a distraction from their grief. They're looking for someone who can stabilize them because they don't know how to stabilize themselves yet. If that's what's happening, the woman in the story isn't stepping into a relationship. She's stepping into a transition. She becomes the bridge from one life to the next. And bridges get walked on, sometimes intentionally, often unconsciously. Either way, the result is usually chaos because the person hasn't finished breaking from the life that they were in. This is where people get fooled by romantic language. They hear, I've always thought about you. And they interpret that as intention. But if somebody is fresh out of a divorce, the real question isn't what they feel, it's what they can hold. Can they hold stability? Can they hold consistency? Can they hold accountability? Can they hold solitude without needing to replace it with a person? If you're that woman, the mature move is to separate the apology from the invitation. You can accept accountability without giving access. You can say, I appreciate you saying that, and essentially keep the door still closed. And if you are genuinely curious, you move with a standard, not with emotion. You can say something like, listen, I'm open to talking, but I'm not dating someone 3 months out of a divorce. If you're serious, time won't scare you. Get stable, take care of yourself, let your life settle. If you still feel the same later, we can revisit it. That's not punishment, that's protection. That's you refusing to become someone's emotional crutch. And pay close attention to what happens next. A stable person will respect that. An unstable person will pressure you, rush you, sell you, guilt you, or act offended. Urgency is not romance. Urgency is often instability asking you to save it. Now, divorce is just one example. Recycling happens in a lot of forms. Sometimes it's a first love. Sometimes it's a long relationship from your 20s. Sometimes it's the person you never got closure from. Sometimes it's the one who always comes back when their life falls apart. Sometimes it's the one who shows up the second they see you doing better without them. And you have to be able to tell the difference between someone returning because they're ready and someone returning because they need something. This is where most people get confused because history creates a false sense of safety. It can make you skip the screening process. You don't treat them like a new person, you treat them like a known quantity. That's the mistake. If you're going to explore recycling, you have to treat it like discovery, not destiny. Discovery means you're open, but you're not blind. It means you allow the present to reveal itself rather than letting the past decide for you. It means you don't let the apology, the nostalgia, or the chemistry skip the part where you evaluate the foundation. So here's how I want you to think about it. Recycling works, but only under a specific set of circumstances. Not because love finds a way. Because, let's be honest, that's bullshit. It's us that are the ones that are doing it. But because the variables changed. Either the person changed, or you changed, or the timing changed, or the life structure changed. Something real changed. The problem is that most people don't wait to see whether the variables changed. They skip straight to the emotional payoff. They go back because it feels good to be wanted by someone who already knows them. They go back because they don't want to start over, because the unknown feels exhausting. And that is not a good enough reason. If someone from your past comes back, I want you to slow down and ask the truth questions, not the romance questions. Start with, why did it end? Not the polite version, the social media version, not the we just weren't aligned version, the truth. Was it timing, distance, life stage, immaturity, fear? Sometimes those are real. Sometimes it was character. Was it consistency? Was it respect? Was it emotional instability? Was it dishonesty? Was it a pattern of selfishness? If the relationship ended because of character and pattern, time doesn't automatically fix that. Time makes someone older without making them different. If you recycle someone whose baseline was instability, you need real evidence that stability is now their baseline. Then ask, what actually changed? This is where people get seduced by words. I'm different. I'm ready. I didn't realize what I had. Trust me, I've done the work. Those are sentences. They're not proof. Change has receipts. Change shows up in how someone lives, how someone handles accountability, how someone deals with discomfort, and whether someone respects boundaries without needing to negotiate them. There's a difference between someone who misses you and someone who has rebuilt themselves. Missing you is an emotion. Rebuilding yourself is a process. One can happen in a weekend, the other takes time. And then ask yourself, what's different this time? This is the structure question. Even if someone has changed, if you rebuilt the relationship the same way, you'll recreate the same ending. This is where you watch for the temptation to fast forward. History can make you want to skip steps. It can make you want to go straight to intimacy, straight to routine, straight to, we're basically together. But if you do that, you don't actually learn who they are now. You just relive who they were then. And now you're living a fantasy that I promise you will be short-lived. If you explore, treat it like meeting a new version of the person. Date them in the present. Talk in the present. Observe in the present. Let them earn access in the present. And yes, that might sound like work, but that's what being intentional is. Intention isn't just being hopeful. Intention is being willing to be honest about what you're seeing. Now, if you're listening and thinking, okay, but what would this look like if it's actually healthy? You know what? Let me paint that picture, because that's where a lot of people get stuck. They either slam the door or they swing it wide open. A healthy recycle is neither. It's a controlled reentry. Controlled reentry means you don't punish them for the past, but you also don't pretend the past didn't happen. You let the conversation happen, and you let the present earn what the past lost. That's the part people skip. They treat the reconnection like an emotional reunion when it should be treated like an evaluation. So if you choose to explore, start small on purpose. Not because you're playing games, but because you're respecting reality. You do not, under any circumstance, owe anyone instant access to your life just because you share history. History is exactly why you should move slower, because history is what makes you vulnerable faster. That looks like meeting up, talking, and noticing whether the person is calm or urgent. Calm is a good sign. Calm says, I'm here because I want to build something real. Urgency often says, I'm here because I need something. If someone is pushing for intimacy, immediate exclusivity, immediate intimacy, immediate reassurance, pay attention. They may be trying to lock down comfort, not build a foundation. It also means you ask direct, adult questions early. Not interrogations, just clarity. What are you looking for now? What does your life actually look like right now? What are you building? What did you learn from what happened between us? What did you learn from what happened between your other relationships? What would you do differently if we tried again? Those questions don't ruin anything that's real. They only ruin fantasy. And if the answers are vague, if the answers become defensive, if the answers are mostly emotional but not practical, don't interpret that as they're nervous. Because remember, there's history between you two. There should be no nerves here. Interpret it as information. Adult relationships are built by adults who can talk like adults. A healthy recycle also has pacing. You don't go from 0 to basically together in a week because the chemistry is familiar. You give time for the present version of them to show up. You let consistency build, not intensity. You don't create a honeymoon period on nostalgia and then act surprised when the old problems reappear. You earn trust the same way you would with anyone else, over time through behavior. This is especially important if the relationship ended with hurt. If someone broke your trust, the standard isn't just that they feel sorry. The standard is that they understand what it cost you and they behave in a way that proves they won't casually create that cost again. That's why I'm sorry isn't enough. I'm sorry is a sentence. Repair is a pattern. Now, I want to come back to that. If they were your match, you wouldn't have split up idea and add the nuance it deserves. Sometimes people do split up and later reunite successfully. That usually happens for one of two reasons. The first is that the breakup wasn't about character. It was about circumstances, distance, timing, life stage, family pressure, unfinished personal growth. In those cases, the foundation may not have been good, but the environment wasn't ready. Or no, the foundation was good, but the environment wasn't ready. The second is that character was the issue, but character actually evolved. Not overnight, not because they missed you, because life humbled them and they did the work. They became a different person with a different baseline. What almost never works is when people recycle because they want to overwrite the ending. They want to rewrite the story so it hurts less. They want the right person, wrong time narrative to be true because it gives the pain meaning. But meaning isn't the same thing as accountability. And you don't build a relationship out of a narrative, you build a relationship out of a foundation. That brings me to another trap that shows up with recycling: closure addiction. People think they're going back because they want the person, but what they actually want is the emotional relief of a better ending. They want to feel chosen. They want to feel like it wasn't a waste. They want the apology to turn into a romance because that would make the hurt feel justified. And listen, that's understandable. It's human. But it's also dangerous because it can make you attached to the idea of healing through the same person who hurt you. Frankly, the healthiest closure is not re-entry, it's acceptance. If someone comes back and they give you an apology, you can receive that as closure and still say no to the relationship. You can appreciate accountability and still decide the foundation isn't for you. That's maturity. You're not required to turn their regret into responsibility. Now let's talk about another common recycling pattern: the sly return. This is when someone comes back, not with stability, not with intention, but with a soft ping, like a DM, hey, how have you been? It's subtle, but it carries a message. Are you still there? If you respond and it becomes flirty and then it goes quiet again, that's not reconnection, that's testing access. And if you keep engaging with that, you become part of a loop where they get to feel wanted without having to choose you clearly. That's where people end up stuck. They're not even dating the person, they're dating the possibility. They're dating a threat. They're dating a notification. If you want to protect yourself from that, you have to decide what kind of contact you'll tolerate. If you're not interested, close it cleanly. If you are interested, require clarity. You don't have to be harsh, but you do have to be honest. I'm not doing vague check-ins. If you want to actually reconnect, we can talk. If not, I wish you well. That's how you stop breadcrumbing from becoming your normal. Now, I want to talk about settling versus acceptance, because I think people get this wrong when they recycle. Sometimes people go back and call it acceptance. They say, I've realized nobody is perfect and I accept them as they are. Acceptance is a beautiful thing when you're accepting normal human imperfections. Everyone has flaws, everyone has quirks, everyone has limitations. Acceptance is a big part of love. I mean, I've said it, I don't even know how many times throughout this podcast. Settling is different. Settling is when you accept a pattern that makes you smaller because you're tired of searching. Settling is when you accept an imbalance because you don't want to start over. Settling is when you call familiar dysfunction good enough because you're exhausted. So ask yourself honestly, am I accepting a person or am I tolerating a pattern? If you're tolerating a pattern that hurt you the first time, you're not choosing love. You're choosing predictability. And predictability feels calming even when it's harmful because it's what we know. It's what we're used to. Now, I also want to address the other side of recycling because sometimes you're the one who wants to reach out. You're the one thinking about the past. You're the one considering reopening a door. And if that's you, it's cool. Check your motives before you send the message. Don't reach out because you're lonely at night. Don't reach out because dating isn't going well and you want comfort. Don't reach out because you miss being wanted. If you do reach out, if you want to recycle, do it with integrity. That means owning what happened without expecting anything in return. It means being willing to hear no without trying to negotiate it. It means offering closure if that's what's appropriate, not using closure as bait. A clean message doesn't sound like a sales pitch. It sounds like accountability. It sounds like respect. It sounds like, I understand if you don't want to reopen this, but I wanted to own what I did and apologize. And if you can't send that message without needing something back, you're not reaching out for them, you're reaching out for you. And that's the difference between sincerity and strategy. So if you are not going to recycle, close the door cleanly. You can say, I appreciate the apology. I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm not interested in reopening this romantically. I wish you well. You don't need a debate. You don't even need justification. You don't need to turn it into a character critique. You just close the door. And if you are going to explore, set a standard for the explanation. You can say, I'm open to getting to know you, but we're not sliding back into what we were. We're doing this intentionally. We're not skipping steps. If we're building something, it's going to be a new structure. Either way, the standard is the same. You don't let history turn you sloppy. And finally, I want to talk about the real cost of recycling when it goes wrong, because this isn't just about heartbreak. It's about self-trust. When you go back to the same pattern repeats, you don't just lose the relationship, you lose a piece of your confidence in your own judgment. You start questioning your instincts. You start thinking you can't trust your standards. You start thinking maybe you're the common denominator in a way that isn't fair. And I've said it a billion times on this podcast too, you are always listening to yourself. So don't talk negatively or think negatively of yourself. That's why I keep saying, don't let fatigue drive the decision. Fatigue makes you compromise in ways you won't respect later. It makes you accept things you would tell your best friend not to accept. It makes you confuse familiarity with safety. So the goal of this episode isn't to make you afraid of your past. It's to make you honest about it. If the past comes back and it's genuinely different, you'll be able to see that without rushing. Take your time. If the past comes back and it's the same pattern in a new outfit, hopefully you'll be able to see that too. And hopefully you'll be able to walk away without needing to be convinced. Now, let me bring this home with the simplest truth of the whole episode. Most people aren't recycling because they found the one. They're recycling because starting over is exhausting. They're recycling because the unknown feels heavy. They're recycling because the past feels like relief. I get it. But relief is not compatibility, and relief is not stability. If someone from your past comes back, slow down long enough to see the truth. Don't let nostalgia rewrite history. Don't let an apology hypnotize you. Don't let dating fatigue turn a familiar person into a savior. The past is not automatically a warning, but it is never automatically a green light either. The past is a data point, and you're allowed to use the data. You're allowed to remember how it felt. You're allowed to say that dynamic cost me too much. And you're allowed to walk away even if the apology is beautiful, even if the timing feels poetic, and even if the chemistry still exists. But chemistry doesn't fix foundations. So if you take one thing from this episode, take this. Do not treat recycling like fate. Treat it like a decision, and make that decision with your blueprint, not with your exhaustion. Maybe you didn't have the blueprint the first time around, and now you can look at this more objectively. Does this person fit or not? The exact same question you would ask a new potential partner. Now, on that note, I want to thank you so much for listening. If you made it to the end, thank you. You have no idea how much I appreciate you. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you've got something out of it. And as always, if you have any questions for me or podcast ideas, or you want to purchase my books, because there's a new one coming. Well, depends when you listen to this. Go to my website. That's joeyfrances.com, joeyfrances.com. And there you can get access to me, everything that I do. You can also find me on Instagram at joeyfrances. And you can send me a DM there too. And lastly, before I go, don't recycle your past to escape your present. And don't let fatigue write your love story. Till next time.